was out in the woods one day when a quick flicker caught my eye. "Who are you?" I dared to ask. "I'm a wood nymph, quick and spry. I live in the trees, and I sleep, I bask. But don't mess with me, I've got a gun." And with that, I dared to run. It's early May in the land of tundra and muskeg, up by the Arctic Circle. This is a land of northern lights, north of the Ogilvy Mountains, my job description read. We flew by helicopters, left the tree lines and the mountains far behind, left civilization far behind. I hopped off the helicopter and I started to unload the supplies that we came with. And the boss had basically built the whole entire camp before we got there, just so that everything was organized. But he did give us a warning that there had been a grizzly. He chased the grizzly off. So we were unloading the helicopters, and lots of boxes. The whole tent city had been built, as I say. There was a cook shack, and that was my domain. There's a supply tent. That's going to double as the geologist's abode. And there's a tent for the driller and the driller's helper. So I kind of lugged the last box into the supply tent, and I said, "Okay, well, where am I sleeping? Where's my home for the summer?" And the boss pointed over yonder, a respectable distance away from the main camp, away from all the fellas. I had a little A-frame tent. Now these tents that the others had were actually built of wood, like 2x4s. They're quite wooden structures, half walls built of plywood, wooden floors, wooden doors, trusses that create the peak of the tent, and a tailor-made white canvas tent fits snugly right over top. And it's tied down, and then there's a tarp that goes over top of that again, so we're all assured that we have a nice waterproof roof. But my little tent was on the ground. It did stand about maybe 7 or 8 feet high, A-shaped, but it was canvas, no wooden floors or doors. I was on the ground. But it proved to be a good little home for the summertime. I didn't have any qualms about that, but I was a little bit worried about this grizzly bear that was more or less in the neighborhood. On usual days, I would actually take the lunches up to the drill site in fire buckets. I would just load all the sandwiches and the boxes of juice and water and fruit and baked goods. And I would walk the game trail all the way up to the drill site. Just something to do. When you're sitting in camp all by yourself, it gets pretty boring. So it was kind of a nice interlude in the day, middle of the day, where I could take my little walk. So I got up to the trail, up to the drill site one day, and the fellas all turned around and said, "Nancy, did you see the bear sign?" And I just like, begrudgingly, I said, "Oh, what bear sign? I didn't see anything on my way up here." And they said, "Well, going on the way back, make sure you're taking a look at the sandbar. We actually circled the paw print, and there's big raking of claws on the trees." So I was in the habit, I was kind of in that hippie era of my life. I wore a lot of bangles, and I actually had bells on. And that was my way of notifying the wildlife that I was here. But sure enough, I got to the sandbar, and I saw where they had circled, and with my big hiking boots on, this one print was as big as my heel to toe. About that big was one print. And sure enough, there were big rake marks on the trees. So the guys got used to taking their own lunches up to the drill site. I decided to just kind of hang around the camp. And actually, I got into the habit of seeking safe haven in the tree cache. Now, for those who don't know what a tree cache is, it's when you get 3 or 4 tall trees kind of grouped together, you build a huge platform, and we're not nailing nails into the trees. because that's a deadly way of treating trees. You can kill a tree with punching nails into it. But the trees would actually operate as a basic structure. And the boss built this big platform the year before, so that when he left from his first expedition out here, he was able to put all of his supplies and tents and things on in this tree cache. It's about 16 to 20 feet up, and then there's a good solid rough hewn ladder. You can climb all the way up to this platform. And around the edge of the platform, there's a bit of a railing, just so that things don't go flying off the sides. And the boughs of the trees actually protect this platform a little bit from the snow, and you can tie things to it. You can tie the tarps over top of your load. So this tree cache actually became my little safe haven. I started staying overnight in the tree cache instead of taking residence in my little tent. I thought it was time to head for the trees. I hung up big, huge mosquito netting over top of the whole platform, so I was safe from the mosquitoes. I had my flashlight, I had my sleeping bag and pillow, I had my paperback book and my alarm clock so I could get up in the morning to make breakfast for the fellas. And I also had a gun. I was brought up with guns. My grandfather and my father showed me how to shoot guns, handguns and rifles, so I was very comfortable with these things. I've never shot anything other than tin cans or pie plates or something, but I was a pretty good shot. And I disported in taking little fire drills, I guess you could call them. I mean, you're fairly bored sitting in camp by yourself, but I would take the rifle and run up this tree cache, and just so I could steady myself and get a good shot if I had to. I was really hoping I would never have to do that, but I'm the one with the bacon grease and the fresh bacon. So I thought this would be a precautionary. But eventually the bear left the area. There was a big salmon run in a huge river very far away from us, and that's where the bears ended up going, was off to this big salmon run. And I was actually able to come out of the tree cache and took up residence in my little tent again. But I kind of liked my tree cache. I did quite, there was an affinity there, working with a bunch of guys throughout the summer. This was a really nice little place to relax and sleep and doze and watch the stars and, the northern lights, to watch the northern lights. I have my own platform. So if you're out in the woods on trails less traveled, because it was way out there, please enjoy all the flora and fauna around you. But keep an eye open for that elusive tree cache, because they're hidden in the trees that they're built in. And you never know. There just might be a gun-toting wood nymph who's trying to sleep or bask.